Thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Teela Gajewski. I'm the data coordinator for Action St. Louis. And our tool today that I'll be reviewing is all in support of ensuring safe and stable housing for tenants in St. Louis. A little bit about Action St. Louis is that we are an organization dedicated to building power to Black communities. And we do that in a variety of ways. I have listed our ongoing campaigns around public safety, electoral justice, and a few coalitions as well. But I'll dive deeper into We the Tenants as our data tool is in support of that campaign. We, the Tenants, developed as a group of organizers and lawyers reaching out to renters to help them apply for rental assistance and different supportive programs. But as those resources dried out due to lack of funding, the focus shifted into creating a space where renters and organizers can build a movement to create a region of St. Louis where everyone has access to safe and stable housing. One of the first initiatives from this campaign was to release a housing survey so that we can identify the specific living conditions and experiences with evictions that our renters are experiencing. This eventually led to a full-length report outlining the state of housing in St. Louis with responses from this survey, along with a variety of other open data sources around evictions and some demographics of renters in St. Louis. So this takes us over to our key stakeholders for this data tool. Since we have already had this data product in a report-wise, that was primarily for elected officials and other community advocates. So we really wanted to find a way to focus renters. Since we had so much data to share, we really wanted to engage them and focus on having them using this data tool as well. So we really wanted to focus on renters, and of course, elected officials, media, and other landlords might have opinions, but we really wanted to focus on renters for this tool. And one of the first things that we would want renters to do when seeing this tool is to join our campaign and to, if they're uncomfortable with maybe going to a place physically, they could also share their story through our housing survey and potentially share that with their friends and family. And this is still beneficial for community advocates because we can bring them in the same way and have them share this with their other base and news outlets and just continue to try to reach as many renters as possible. So in order for renters to gain access to the meeting or the survey, of course, they need the links to that to sign up, but they also need to consider why they would do that and what information they need that would encourage them to come to a meeting or fill out their survey. And so we had a few conversations with our organizers that have been contacting renters, and we really had this understanding that renters are afraid of sharing their story because they're afraid of their landlords retaliating against them. And they also have expressed a lack of knowledge around what rights they have as tenants. And so they're really unsure about what to do and where they can go. So we wanted to show that we are a safe place to share their story, and that sharing their story allows us to identify the problems and who's responsible for these, and allows us to create change. And of course, for our community advocates, we really want to highlight that landlords are targeting very vulnerable populations, and we really need to work together in order to make change. So with that, we have the data, and we really wanted to show a map of renters showing how many people are in each zip code and how many of them have filled out our survey. It also goes into the living conditions identified in our survey, whether they knew their landlord or not, how much rental assistance they may need. And also, you can filter all of this information by zip code and landlord so that the individual can really relate and already know that they have things in common with people existing in our campaign. And then that can hopefully be some common ground for them and feel a little more comfortable reaching out and engaging with us. It was also very important for us to include eviction data because it ties a direct line between community engagement, identifying the problem, and having a positive outcome. We were able to win right to counsel, which allows our tenants to have access to an attorney for eviction hearings. And we know that's incredibly important because when renters have access to an attorney, they are less likely to be evicted, and they also owe less court costs in the long run. So it was really important to tie that eviction data to our campaign win as well. And then, of course, there is space for accessing our full-length report if people wanted additional information, more in-depth information. Community advocates could have access to that as well. So here we have our data tool. I'll briefly go over some of the other resources we had. We used the census data, a few IPUMS data that PolicyLink really helped us out with. Also, just using Google Sheets, et cetera, to disaggregate the data as well. So we have our tool here. I've included how to use this dashboard right in the first corner, just to encourage people to click it. We see that we have our zip code filter here, and we have our landlord type filter here, and all of this data to the side will be adjusted to reflect what numbers in the zip code and what numbers in the landlord type as well. And of course, we have our survey and meeting links up at the top as well so that people have easy access to that. And we have our Explore Eviction data, which brings us to this dashboard here, which you can see in the orange dots are eviction, average eviction filings, and the larger the circle, the more eviction filings. And then we have this darker color on the map reflecting higher percentages of people experiencing rent burden. And we can start to see some correlation here as well. And I also really wanted to make sure that these graphs or maps were very different because they are measuring different things. We have zip codes in this map and census districts in this map, mostly related to the availability of the data and my ability to convert data to show it properly. I also have this zip code that this filter here that filters by date, mostly because I only had average monthly eviction filings, so wasn't really able to aggregate that together, but it does allow us to tell a story through time when clicking on different months of the map. And I also want to emphasize that if you click on different census districts, you can see the racial demographics of that area, which really allows you to tie back to more vulnerable people being targeted for eviction. And I also wanted to note that this will be embedded on our website, which will allow us to have a little paragraph explaining the context of the survey, some background information, our right to counsel wins, and contact information for organizers as well. Just a little snapshot of the tutorial, really just explaining what you can do with every button, where the buttons take you, a little explanation of what the map shows as well. And the similar thing for the eviction dashboard, just explaining what you can see, where these numbers might come from, and what you can learn on here. Some design considerations, we wanted an online format embedded on our website so that you know that this data is coming from We the Tenants. It's coming from people who are experiencing similar things. And we wanted it to be very easy, accessible, which is also why I included the tutorial to give people, help people feel a little more comfortable exploring the tool. We also wanted to use the narrative to emphasize that landlords are taking advantage of vulnerable populations and still the court system is unfair. So really pinpointing that vulnerable people are being targeted and that it is a systemic issue that a lot of people are experiencing, and we need to take action together in order to change it. I also didn't include any filters active on the default view just to provide a general overview, so you don't have to interact with it to still learn a lot about your city, um, except for the details of the eviction map, which I've mentioned. So that really allows people to interact with it at whatever level they want to, and learn as much as they feel like they need to. How we plan to use this, mostly, like I said, as a recruitment tool, people can access the survey, come to our next meeting, and we can reach out to them through the information they provide through there. We also plan to use this during our meetings to help people prepare for testimonies they'd like to provide in support of different bills, and also help us identify what different needs we might need protected in a Bill of Rights that we can decide on together as the tenants in this meeting. And some final reflections. I think we've all kind of mentioned community input is really important. That really allows you to focus on where your tool needs to go and really identifying who this is for. It really does, like Sharani mentioned, really helps the rest of the project fall together once you identify who this tool is for and what they need to know in order to do whatever it is you want them to do. Which really does lead into the fact that data products are not one size fits all. Like I said, we had a lot of data to share, and we really needed to pinpoint specific data points that we thought would be most important for renters that we identified were going to be the primary users. And I'd also note that cleaning data and completing your data checks as you go will save a lot of time in the end. It's really important to try to stay organized because as you continue in your project, the more resources you obtain, it begins easier to start to lose sight of where those resources are, or maybe even where you got them. And then I just have a few specific suggestions in terms of what your data should look like, using ones and zeros instead of yes, no, especially if you're going to go into a software. It's easier for it to aggregate different sums and percentages if you do it that way. Really just keep a tracker of your data, when it was cleaned, where the source came from, etc., and just commit a decent amount of time. That way your data checks, you know everything is accurate, you know where things are, and it just saves time in the end. And that kind of goes into having people review your data product. I was looking at this information for about a year, so the numbers and information kind of start to blend together. And so it's important to get some fresh eyes on there. And as my other fellows mentioned too, is just, you can make some mistakes on these tools, and that really helps you learn. Asking for help. There are a lot of community resources online for these tools. And really just using those and not being afraid to dive in, become the data person that you have inside, and yeah, just really explore with what you can do with your own data, and that can really help you get to a final product as well. Here is my information if you'd like to connect with me and my lovely cat, Winnie. Thank you so much for your time today.